Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's Rob from Rob's Game Group, and this is another episode of White Box Weekly. Yeah, I know I haven't put out a lot of videos in the last week, but that's because right after last week's White Box video, I got sick. And I was only sick for a couple of days, but it was fever and coughing and congestion and just, all the fun stuff. And I felt like crap for a few days, and then I kind of got over it, and then I was still... Even though I got past all that, I've still been dealing with a lot of the coughing and congestion stuff, so I haven't felt like doing any videos. But, had to get on here today and get a couple knocked out. I am feeling better. So, if you have not been keeping up with the White Box Weekly videos, they are, right now, recaps of my Tuesday night game. And if you want to know what's been going on, just check out the White Box playlist on here on the channel. All my White Box material is in there, including the White Box Weeklies that have led up to this point. For those of you who have been keeping up, here is what happened last night. So it was a lot of combat. Now we have been building up to a big combat, a big confrontation between the cult in Innsmouth of the Esoteric Order of Dagon and the party. And where we left off last week, the party had split. Some of them stayed in the ruins up on the bluffs. Some of them headed back down into the town under the cover of darkness. And to quote Mike Dymart, for Tommy! Because they were going to save Tommy, the shopkeeper, and any other normal people they could find. So there was one thing that I left out of last week by accident, and I'm going to hit it real quick because there's some important information in this. If you remember, the dwarf grabbed the parchment off of the altar while they were in the church, used it to wrap around the idol of Cthulhu, and because he didn't want to touch it, and then put it in his bag. Later on, when they were looking stuff over, they did open it and realized that it was a letter. And the letter says, to the Esoteric Order of Dagon in Innsmouth, by command of the High Priest of the Deep in Arkham, Dagon, Watcher of the Deep, and the great Cthulhu that dreams in R'lyeh, henceforth, each harvest season, you will send no less than 6 young brood, 3 to the church in Ipswich, and 3 to Arkham. They must have begun to show signs of the turning. Anyone that defies this will be shown the ways of the great old ones. By intensifying breeding, we will be that much closer to waking our great and terrible father. Not even the Miskatonic Order of the Shield will stop us from bringing about the Great Rising. So I did forget to read that to you guys last week. That letter that was sent to the church here in Innsmouth gave some very important information to the players. They now know a few things. One, they know that the cult is far more widespread than just here, which they already suspected, but now they know it has a foothold in Ipswich, it has a foothold in Arkham. They know that they're not just breeding with the deep ones to breed with the deep ones. They're doing this and sending them out and about for whatever reason. Presumably to do something that has to do with the Great Rising. But they also learned that there is a faction that is opposed to the Church of Dagon, or the Order of Dagon, and that is the Miskatonic Order of the Shield. So they know they have allies out there. And that was very important because they're going to try to seek out those allies. Because let's face it, they need them. And after last night, they need them badly. So, last night presented, some challenges for me running the game as how the party was going about doing things. First of all, the party split, which normally isn't a big deal to me. If they want to split up, that's fine. Even if I run multiple combats or something, that's fine. They hadn't actually had any real combat up until this point. There had been a little bit in the church, and they fought that one deep one, but that was it. Now they have the church burning in town. Just like 70 or 80 cultists that are just spread out, breaking into hunting parties, trying to hunt them down. And half of the group, the martial half, decides to sneak back in under the cover of darkness and go to try to save Tommy. So I had to think about how to handle that. And obviously they were, they didn't, they weren't going, okay, we're just going to charge headlong into, 80 cultists, because they're not morons. Even at, cultists not being that great or that powerful, if you're trying to take on 80 of them and you're just 4 people, sooner or later you're going to fail saves. I'm going to roll high enough to kill you, and it's just not going to go well. So I needed a way to represent them sneaking through town and how chaotic it is, and hunting parties out randomly looking for them. So what I did was I wrote up some rules for both, for the party sneaking into town and the party who is still up on the bluffs and the ruins. Those of them who were still up on the bluffs and the ruins, shortly after dark, they noticed that, remember the head priest, the Alithiad looking guy, was chanting and having the whole group chant, and like they were calling something. Well, they were calling the deep ones out from Devil's Reef. The magic user, Nate's magic user, I believe, turns and looks out into the bay and sees just dozens and dozens of these things jumping off the reef and swimming through the water and heading for the beach. So their friends are too far gone ahead of them for them to do anything to warn them. All they can do at this point is try to hide the women that they've rescued, which they hide with Zadok, and they move down onto the beach because they see that while most of these deep ones are headed into town, there is a hunting party of 5 or 6 of them that is kind of broken off and is roaming through the ruins and debris and stuff on the beach, just searching. And they decide to go take them out. So I have 2 separate combat situations going on, and I had 2 different battle mats laid out. And the way we handled it was I would do a couple of rounds with this group and then a couple of rounds with the other group, and kind of switch back and forth so nobody was sitting too long. The group I had on the beach was mostly casters, 1 barbarian there, and they were moving behind piles of rubble and so on and so forth, trying to get the drop on these deep ones, which did happen, and they got into a fairly big fight with these things. Switching back over, I'm not going to go back and forth. So that fight, let's just take care of that fight. So that fight goes on for a while. They end up fighting, I think, killing 5 of these deep ones. However, in the process, Haley's barbarian fell in battle, and she failed her death saves and died. So, first character of the night down right there. So switch back over. The group I had going through town, I needed to make a way that seemed very chaotic, very, they're moving through alleyways and stuff. So I have, the Loki battle mats. I had the big, giant book of them. And it's, I have one that's literally like medieval town. You're looking down from the rooftops. So what I did was I took that and I put it on the table, and this is all pre-game. I took some sections about like that, 6 of them, in different spots around the map between alleyways and buildings and so on and so forth, and I colored them in with a wet erase red marker and indicated each one with a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I told the players, I'm like, okay, we're going to handle this kind of like we did Dramatic Task with Savage Worlds. You're going to have to get through a certain number of obstacles to get to where you're trying to go, because they're trying to get in, get to Tommy, and get out. So I said, okay, what we're going to do is you're going to have 4 chances to run into encounters before you get to the supply shop. And the way we're going to handle that is one of you can roll, you can all roll once, I don't care. But you're going to roll and a d6, and I had a chart that I made and put in here. And on a 1, they happen to see cultists moving from building to building, but they remain in the shadows and they avoid a combat. If they roll a 2 to 5, they run smack into a group of cultists that are looking for them, but it's, just regular cultists. This is a normal encounter, so it's regular cultists, which ain't very powerful, and it's like 1d6 plus 2 cultists that they run into. And if they roll a 6, it's a deadly encounter, which is, again, they run into a group of cultists, but this time it has a cult leader with them, not the octopod head guy, but just a cult leader. So they end up doing 4 encounters, and when they get an encounter, I had them roll a d6, and that was the part of the map that they were in on. Like, oh, we're in this alley now, and there's guys coming this way. Next encounter, you might be in another part of the city, and that's just the way I randomized it to make it where it wasn't just moving from here to here to here. So they ended up doing 4 encounters, which then had them get to the shop. And Tommy and the housemates he had were already being rounded up out in front of the shop. The party came busting around the side, waylaid these dudes, took them out, killed all of them real quick, including the cult leader that was there. They actually got some stuff off of him. He had a bag of gold on his possession. He had a magic sword, and some really nice boots that they haven't figured out what to do with yet. But they also then cut back into the shop. They gather up a bunch of supplies because they also need to outfit these women that they're trying to get out of town. And then they start the trek back. And I had told them on the trek back there was a possibility for 4 more encounters unless they rolled a 6. If they rolled a 6 on the way back, then it was going to be, just like before, a deadly encounter. But instead of the cult leader, they were going to have the high priest, which was the Alithiad guy with psionic abilities and everything. Their first roll was a 6. So they end up fighting this group, and the fight goes back and forth a little bit, and then my wife's duelist gets dropped, and she fails her saves, and she dies. So second character of the night killed. Keep in mind, they all had 2 characters apiece going into this, so it's not like they were out of the game. They just lost 2 of their 8 characters. And it came close. I really thought I was about to get a TPK on this half of the party, but there were some amazing die rolls out of nowhere, some crits and stuff at the end, and they managed to kill this high priest. And then they grab my wife's character's body, and they're dragging it out of there, and they're trying to make a run for it and get back to the bluffs. And they start hearing all of these deep ones that are roaming town with the cultists start wailing in anger. Well, they just push through. Go, 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 go. They get back to the bluffs. By the time they get back, the party there has already defeated the deep one hunting party that came looking for them. Unfortunately, one character had fallen. They get up there and they're looking back down into the town, and the deep ones are, to their astonishment, tearing the cultist apart. They are literally ripping apart and killing cultist townsfolk, tearing buildings apart, everything, all in rage. And the only thing they can figure is because their high priest was killed. And the townsfolk and cultists did not protect him, and therefore they had to pay. So in the midst of this, while they were in the safety of the shadows up on the bluffs, they decided these things are gonna, probably carry on like this till morning, and then they're gonna go back into the water. So the party decided to hide out, gather supplies the next morning from whatever's left in the ruins of Innsmouth, and then take the north road out of town and try to get these women back to the safety of another city, another town, somewhere away from here. But then they are going to go to either Ipswich or Arkham and try to seek out members of this Miskatonic Order of the Shield, because they could use allies. So we had a really good time with it. There's not a lot of story to tell, other than, because it was so much combat, because it was the big, fight for this part of the story. However, after my wife's duelist fell, this was funny, because she took that nice new sword, which was a magic sword off of that cult leader, and she had given one of her swords to Tommy. And Tommy, after she died, Tommy taking that sword and just being a little lowly shopkeeper boy, when they're fighting that Ilithiad, he actually charges him and gets a really good, I think he got a crit in, with that sword, and he did a lot of damage. So there's now talk of Tommy joining the party, since his job in Innsmouth is pretty much over, and he's got a taste for adventure now. So we'll see if somebody comes back wanting to play Tommy, or if he's just an NPC that ends up in the group. But we had a good time with it. The game will continue. We are taking a break at this point for the holidays, because next week is Thanksgiving, and it's just a snowball of weird events that are going on between then and the first of the year. There's still chances my son's coming home from the Army. We're not sure 100% yet. If he does, then we have all kinds of things lined up. They're going to keep us really busy. If he doesn't, then we're going to be doing some offshoot games, just, to get us through the holidays. And then we'll start back with our normal gaming after the first of the year. Excuse me. This game, they actually, my wife, who asked me to run this game, asked me to put it on hold at this point, because we didn't want to run it too far into Christmas. And her and some of the other players expressed the opinion that they were having a lot of fun with the game, but they didn't want to burn out on this one game. And I have so many other games that we want to play and we want to try out, and I have more coming in from other companies that we want to try out too, that they've asked me to start running shorter campaigns, like mini campaigns, instead of long drawn out month or a year campaign. Short campaigns, which I'm going to go over my thoughts on in another video about does size matter in role-playing games. But I can definitely understand that, because I do have a lot of games that we want to try and we want to play, and they are at a point where we could take a break from this, because they took care of what was going on in Innsmouth. They defeated the cult inadvertently in that one town. But moving forward, the cult still has churches in other cities. They're still doing stuff, and they'll need to be stopped. But we could run those in small blocks of 5 or 6 game sessions, and then switch to something else. And if that's what the party wants to do, if that's what the players want to do, then that's what we're going to do. I want my players to have a good time. So that's it on the White Box Weekly, probably for most of the rest of the year. I don't know. I may do 1 or 2 that are not game recaps. If something pops up, we'll just have to see. Otherwise, White Box Weekly will be back after the holidays, when we go back to playing this game and play the next leg of it. And that's pretty much all I've got on that. I hope you've enjoyed the recaps. We do plan to come back and finish this story. This was player's choice, and it also makes sense because we were getting ready to break in a couple of weeks anyway. I always break my normal game, and then we just do some one-off holiday games, which we are doing this year. We're not just not playing. Haley's actually taking over next week running, and she's supposed to run for the next month. And she's running Dark Places and Demogorgons, and we're doing a Christmas special So starting from Thanksgiving on, willing to bet we're going to have to face a Krampus. But love that game, so it sounds like a lot of fun. I'm really excited to play it, and I get to play, so pretty excited for that period. But I'll probably be back to talk about more gaming stuff soon. And if you like these videos, please like, share, subscribe. Ways to communicate with me are in the description of the video. And until next time, my friends, good gaming and good luck.